Parenting children. Every parent wants to know how to do it well. We don't have all the answers, but we have a few thoughts. How do you teach responsibility to your children? Let's talk about parenting in this Life Over Coffee episode. Hello everyone, Rick Thomas here with Dr. Daniel Berger. We are talking parenting. This is an inexhaustible topic, and so we're not going to be able to cover parenting 101, 102, 103 in this short video, but we want to give you a few thoughts on how to parent children well, specifically teaching children responsibility. And so Daniel, how many children do you have?
We have 4.
And their ages are?
From 3 all the way to 12.
So 3 to 12. And so the 12 is heading into omniscience now.
That's right.
I was a late bloomer. I wasn't omniscient till I was 19, but I know my children became omniscient much earlier. They're sitting here behind the camera, by the way, and so make sure you say this well.
That's right.
All right, so teaching your children, our children responsibility. What are a few thoughts you have around that topic?
Yeah, well, my wife and I really stress to our kids that we're not just teaching them to fit into a comfortable system in our house. That's not why we're parenting. We're parenting them to go out on their own.
Right.
So part of obviously godliness being a premier responsibility of loving God and loving others. But any responsibility that they have, we're wanting them to know that we want them to leave our house. They're always welcome in our house, but we're really raising them to have the freedom to exercise privilege and responsibility.
So parenting is not the end game. Parenting is actually the launching pad where you're releasing them for the rest of their life. And so this short runway that they have, which can be 18, 20, 21 years, whatever, that is a short runway, but that is the runway that we help our children to launch them so that they can lift off and live well in God's world. What are some of the tips or thoughts that you and Daniel's wife, Oriana, that she has, you have about sending them down this runway?
Yeah, we have a, and I guess we could go as far as to have a physical circle, but we have this idea of a circle with all of our children, and we fill their circle with responsibility. So my kids will, if we talked about this, if you talked about this with my children, they would know exactly what you're talking about. So each of them have a circle of responsibility, and as they fill that, they get a bigger circle. And so the idea is we want to give them more freedom and more responsibility, more privilege, if I can use that word, to the point where they're on their own and able to fill. But the moment they don't fill that small circle, it shrinks back down. And this has been incredibly helpful because we talk about the circle quite a bit. When there's problems, and there are problems constantly, if you've parented, you know that this is one of the most humbling things that you can do, because it's constant repetition. It's constant feeling like you're failing.
That and marriage.
Well, that too, yes.
Another video.
But I have a perfect wife, so no, I say that tongue in cheek. I've been very blessed, but I find parenting to be even more humbling than being in a marriage, just because this is a soul that they're not our souls. They're our responsibility and privilege. They're God's, and that in itself is a tough one. We want to shape their lives to go a certain way, whether it's a career, etc., and that's not what we're called to do at all. So that, going back to that circle, it's just so helpful, and we talk about it a lot. So when the room's not being cleaned, then there's not a little extra time to read books at night, or to message your friends in the dining room, etc. Those privileges shrink back down.
Yeah, it's kind of funny or humorous as my children, they're listening to us right now do this video. They have heard the exact same thing said in a different way. You and I have never talked about that I'm aware of as far as parenting strategies are concerned, but we say the same thing, I say it a different way. And what I've told our children for years is that you have absolute freedom to do anything in the world that you want to do. But that freedom is built on truth and trust. And so if you ask my children, what do I want for Christmas?
Your children walking in truth.
And if you couldn't hear that on the video, they said it's 3 John 4. I have no greater joy than to know that my children walk in truth. And I'm making a parental application to what John is saying there. But our relationship with God is built on truth and trust. It's built on God's Word. And if there's anything that is in error about God's Word, then the whole thing just collapses. And so our relationship with God is built on truth. He communicates truth to us. We walk in truth. And when we do, we experience an unbelievable freedom. And so we take that concept with our children, is that as long as we are, and it's with any relationship, if we are communicating, if we're walking in truth, because once we become deceptive and we're not doing it biblically, then we can't communicate, we can't function anymore because we're on two different planes. And so what I ask my children is just be honest, walk in truth, do what you're supposed to do. And even when you fail, there's a truth to that.
Right.
Be honest about your failure. And as you do that, you get more responsibility, more opportunity, more privilege, because what we're trying to do is send them down that launch pad, but they have to do it on truth. And so as they do that, they really have a blank check. They have unlimited possibilities as long as they are walking in truth. And so as my children said, if you ask me, Dad, what do you want for Christmas? Well, I want you to walk in truth. Dad, what do you want for your birthday? I want you to walk in truth. One of my children said a few years ago, said, Dad, I know what you want for Christmas, but can we get you something else? It's like, we want to get you like a physical present. And so we had that discussion, but we wanted to inculcate that into their minds, because the objective, again, is for us not to keep them contained within our world, but to absolutely release them. And so as we talk about biblical principles, biblical responsibilities, biblical concepts, things that we should be doing, not doing, and one of the things that you mentioned is actually key to that, is the two greatest commandments. If you're loving God and loving others more than yourself,
right.
and that really has a lot to do with your responsibilities. Why do I want to take out trash? Because I love Mom and I love Dad. I want to serve them that way. Why do I want to clean my room or make up my bed or whatever it is? Because I love others more than myself. Right. And so as they continue to build that, then it's like, wow, you can do this and you can do this, and you can continue to grow, with the ultimate goal of them stepping out into God's world as autonomous beings under His authority, no longer under our authority, and they can live as men and women walking in truth under God's authority in God's world. And so it's a very similar concept to what you're teaching. So actually, thank you for affirming. Our children are a little bit older. I didn't want to mess them up, so now you have affirmed that we're kind of on a good path here with them.
Yeah, and the biblical principle that we've based this off of is he who is faithful in the small things will be faithful in the bigger things. And so my kids, for example, want a dog. They want a puppy, which I know that you've had experience.
Let's talk through this. We said no to dogs, no to animals forever. Part of it's my own personal laziness. Part of it is realizing that if you give a kid a dog, you're going to be taking care of the dog.
Financially, in every way.
In everything. And so for 14, we love animals. PETA, we love animals, really do. Find them quite tasty, but we love all sorts of animals. But because there's a lot of things to factor in. Whether it's finances or do we have the ability to take care of an animal? We get it for the child, but are we counting the cost with what that really means? And so, yes, we recently, after all these years, we bought a puppy this year, COVID. We have a COVID dog.
And he may be guest starring with you in the future. But
he does come in and out of some of the videos, make some wonderful bloopers.
Yeah. But so, that's just a great example of how we're teaching them. I know right now in their lives, there's no way they have the maturity to take care of a dog.
Right.
That's a much bigger circle because they're not keeping their room clean. And we stress this to them.
And you would really be setting them up for failure in a way.
Right.
Because they're not able to step into that parameter.
That's
circle.
right. And so as much as I'd love for them to have that experience that I had as a child, and I was paying for the dog, I was taking care of it for the most part. My parents did, they helped out as well, especially when I left for college. But they also loved it. They knew what they were signing up for, but that was my responsibility. And so what I'm teaching them is that you have to be faithful in those small things. This is true in ministry, right? If we're not taking care of what God has given us now, desiring this bigger ministry, which a lot of young people in college, especially guys who are in seminary, they have these dreams of being the next Jay Piper or whatever.
Yeah.
They've got to take care of the small things and not worry about these, but let God shape. You and I never dream. I mean, this isn't what we chose for our lives,
right.
And this is God's pathway. But it came from us just simply focusing on being with God, and this applies to every issue of life. Marriage, same way, right? How are we going to take care of responsibilities and not have these negative circles? So we're talking about it expanding positively, but this works for what we would call discipline, even though that's a bad word.
Yeah, we're wrapping up here, but I do want to ask you a quick question here, because there's an implication to what you're saying that we haven't discussed, is where the parent has to step in and say no. And that's hard for a lot of parents to do. And so, Dad, I want a puppy. Dad, I want to fill in the blank, or Mom, either one. Do you struggle with the courage aspect of, so God the Father looks over and superintends, and sometimes He doesn't give us the desires of our heart,
right?
Because He knows better, and so He fathers us in a way that is for our good, which sometimes means you can't have this at all. You can't have this right now.
Yeah.
But there's an implied no there.
Yeah, John Roseman, who is a very well-known, often called the family guru, psychologist who, by God's grace, received Christ, actually goes to Reformed Baptist Church in North Carolina now. He often still says one of the best vitamins that all children need is vitamin no. And it's so true, because our hearts, we have that mentality that anything we desire, we should have. We're seeing this as a culture, right? I mean, the entire American culture is whatever I desire, who are you to tell me no?
Right.
And if I'm not getting it, then you're intolerant, mentality. So saying no to our children, and it has to be based on morality. It has to be based on, and I relay this to my children when they say no, I explain why. I'm not just saying no because I want to say no. I'm saying no because I see something going to hurt you. Not that that's morally bad what you're asking to do, whether it's Messenger in your room or having a computer in your room versus in a public area in our house. I explain those things. Why am I saying no to you?
Right.
They don't always agree, obviously, but when they become parents, magically they start understanding.
They
more,
gain
right?
understanding. Somebody has to count the cost, and typically children don't have the capacity or the categories or the ability to count the cost. Therefore, the parent should be stepping in with courage and saying no sometimes as appropriate. Parenting. I hope that's helpful. If you have any parenting questions that you would like to ask, we do have a lot of parenting articles and videos and podcasts on our website. You're welcome to come there. We have a free community forum as well. This is a never-ending topic for all of us. We're all in it, and none of us do it perfectly well. And so if there's ways that we can serve you, please let us know. Thank you so much for watching the video.